everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for joining me for another episode today. Hopefully my voice holds out. I'm still battling the very end of this cold, which you can probably hear. But I wanted to get on today and tell a story about a new collection that I'm working on and how that inadvertently led me to a really great eBay experience that in a roundabout way resulted in me acquiring an absolute GRAIL card that I have wanted really since I was a child and never thought I would own a copy that looks like the one that I was able to acquire. So this all started a few weeks back. I decided to form a new hockey card collection. I'm always constantly thinking about the hobby, turning it around on its head. I spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about sports cards, and I know most of us probably do. And over the course of the last few weeks, I was thinking over the history of hockey and the goal scoring records per season. I love to collect big seasons, big moments in hockey, just like I do in baseball. And I came to a pretty cool realization. And it started with this guy right here, Maurice the Rocket Richard. Now, you probably know who he is if you're a hockey fan, but I know some of you aren't. So just quickly, I'm not going to go into a career breakdown here. He is one of the early premier goal scorers in NHL history. One of the first really big names who is known on the offensive side of the game for just scoring a massive amount of goals. In fact, he played his entire career for the Canadiens, won multiple Stanley Cups. He's a national hero in the country of Canada. He was the first player to score 50 goals in a season, and he was also the first player to score 500 career goals. So with all the attention that's been in the news lately about Alex Ovechkin breaking Wayne Gretzky's goal record, which he looks about to do any day now, got me thinking back to Maurice Richard, one of the original snipers. And this is actually a card I've never shown off before on the channel, but I've had it for years. And it's a beautiful copy of his final playing era card. He had retired just a month or two before this card was issued. So this was the last one in the run. Beautiful, nicely centered 1960 Parkhurst. Love the yellow background. And his cards, you know, being the personality that he is, with the records that he has and the name recognition and Hall of Famer, his cards are not cheap. I picked that one up many years ago when it was probably a small fraction of what it goes for now. But all right, let's not get too sidetracked here. I know I go on and on. So Maurice Richard, the NHL back in 1998-99, they started awarding a trophy every year to the player who led the league in goal scoring for that season. And they called it, of course, the Maurice Richard Trophy, given that he was the first, real monumental goal scorer or recognizable goal scorer in league history. Now, what's cool about that very same season, 1998, is when Upper Deck introduced one of my favorite parallels in the hobby, Upper Deck exclusives. I've talked about these many times in the history of the channel. In fact, here's an Ovechkin as an example, the man of the moment. These have come out almost every year. There's been one exception since 1998. And they've been serial numbered to 100 almost every year since 1998 as well. So a very long-standing, long-running parallel, much like Topps Gold maybe in baseball, serial numbered, except even tougher at just 100 copies or less per card. So I've been collecting the exclusives cards for years, but you can probably tell where this is going. I got to thinking the NHL created the Richard Trophy in 1998, and Upper Deck started releasing the exclusives parallels in 1998. So my obvious idea was I want to try to collect the Upper Deck exclusives parallel of the goal scoring leader, the Rocket Richard Trophy winner, for every year, 1998 to present, at least where there is one. And so, of course, I started my search at the very beginning, and wouldn't you know it, there was one copy of this card available, and here it is, the 1998-99 Upper Deck Teemu Selanne. A really great goal scorer and overall player, Hall of Famer, started his career back in the early 90s, someone I was a huge fan of growing up. And when I saw this card, I was like, bingo, this is the start of that new collection. The first year, he was the goal scoring leader. I think he scored, 40 some odd goals, if I recall. But this was the card I wanted. And this is the only copy of this card that I could find anywhere on the internet, if you can believe that. I think it was actually 47 goals that he scored in 1998. So this excited me. Not only was one available, which I did not expect to be the case, these 25-plus-year-old parallels that are numbered to 100 or lower just do not turn up often, especially of big name, highly collected players. On top of that, it's graded a PSA 9, my favorite grade from my favorite grader. And if you look closely here, his uniform number, which you can see on his sleeve there, is number 8. And this just happened to be copy number 8 of 100. So it's a jersey match card from his goal leading year. The first year of the Rocket Richard Trophy. Was beyond pumped. It was not a cheap card, but it wasn't an expensive card either. I think it was around maybe $80 after the currency conversion. This was purchased from a seller in Canada. So what happened here, I bought the card. About a week later, the envelope showed up. I was incredibly excited, as you would imagine, to initiate my new collection, starting with this great find. Opened it up, and much to my disappointment, this was not the card in the envelope. It was actually a Peter Forsberg patch card, which, while I'm sure was equally valuable, or maybe even more valuable from a monetary standpoint to this card, and he is a player that I love, I was, incredibly disappointed. I don't want that card. It doesn't fit my collection. But you know what? Mistakes happen. So I reached out to the seller, and this is where things get really interesting. This seller, and I'll try to leave a link below. I think his store name is Beau Sports Cards, Beau. But again, I'll try to leave a link in case you want to browse his items. He could not have been kinder. Instantly got back to me. Obviously, I sent him a photo of the card that I got by mistake with the envelope in the background, just so he knew that I was, not trying to pull any funny business. The guy was just incredible. He apologized profusely, said he would reach out to the seller who most likely got the Solane and was expecting the Forsberg card. He just had a simple mix-up. When you're sending out a lot of packages, it happens. So I waited a couple days, and I heard back from the guy. And basically, he was like, look, can you do me a favor and send the Forsberg card to the guy who is supposed to win it? He's in the US. And, to me, that was great because I was a little bit worried about sending a return back to Canada, filling out the extra forms, etc. So fine. I sent it off. I got it packaged up. He gave me the new address. I sent him back the tracking info. But unfortunately, I was like, what are my odds in turn of getting the Solane card back? And he's like, not good. I haven't heard back from this guy. He's kind of ghosting me a little bit. So you know what? I feel terrible about this. Let me give you a full refund. So to his credit, within just, an hour or two of sending me that message, he refunded me all of the money, which is great. That's all he can do if this person isn't responding. But not every seller is so easygoing and agreeable. So I got my money back, but I was still secretly disappointed. This is not a card I could go out and get another copy of. So right there, my brand new collection that I was so excited about was kind of dead in the water. Not another copy of this available anywhere. I checked Sportlots and ComC and eBay and Facebook Marketplace, anywhere I could think of. But at least I had my money back. You move on. You can't get hung up on these things. And then the really amazing part, as you can tell by the fact that the card's on camera here, a few days later, I hear from the guy. I thought that was the end of our interaction. And he sends me a message out of the blue. Hey, I heard from the seller finally. Or the buyer finally. I gave him your address. He's sending you the Solane card. Here's the tracking info. And that just made my day. So excited. So of course I thanked him profusely. I kept my eye on the tracking. This thing arrived in the mail just maybe 2 or 3 days later. It was very, very quick. Didn't come from too far away. And at last, my exclusives Rocket Richard collection was finally off to the races. I reached out to the seller because I'm an honest person. I know we're all operating on budgets. I sell cards on eBay. I don't want the seller, especially an honest, really good seller, to take like an $80 hit, or in his currency, Canadian dollars, it was like a $110 hit. And I didn't think that was fair, especially given the effort that he put in to correct the situation. So I reached out and offered to send him the money that I owed him for the Solane card to make things right. But this guy was just so incredibly friendly. He flat out refused, told me that I was beyond helpful in helping him correct this and get the Forsberg card to its rightful owner. He was just glad that I got my Solane, and he was happy to call this a wash, learn from his shipping mistake, and move on with his life. Now, in talking to a couple hobby buddies of mine, and I kind of felt the same way, it was like, I just didn't feel right about that. I needed to make that right. And he's got a large eBay store, all hockey cards, or at least mostly hockey cards. So I figured, you know what? Let me peruse his store, find something that's in the $80 to $100 range, buy it from him, and then send him a message telling me, don't bother shipping me the card. Send him a message telling him, don't bother shipping me the card. I just wanted to pay you, and now we're even. However, things didn't exactly go down that way. When I looked at his inventory, a GRAIL card was available that I have wanted my entire life and never really thought about pursuing just because of the cost. It is not a cheap card, and to me, it is arguably the most iconic hockey card of the 1950s. And this copy that he had of the card, beyond that, was just gorgeous. Like everything I look for in a vintage card. Just the exact visual appeal that I want, low to mid-grade, which made it affordable, but looks incredible eye appeal-wise for the grade. Now, this wasn't cheap. It was a comma card, barely so, but it was a comma card. And I can't afford to buy cards like that just on a whim. So one of the reasons that you've seen me doing so many sales recently and showing so many of these graded cards that I have up on eBay is because I wanted to raise the money to purchase this card from him. The more I thought about it, I couldn't get this card out of my brain. And on top of that, I just thought the backstory of finally acquiring the GRAIL and doing so from an eBay seller that I had kind of developed this relationship with and who clearly treats his customers so well was just a really cool kind of cherry on top for acquiring this GRAIL. So I just kept thinking about it, got this guy off of eBay. We got in touch on Instagram, and we were able to work out an off eBay price that he was happy with and that I could not be happier with. So long story short, it arrived here about a week or two ago, and I now have one of my all-time hockey grails, and here it is. It is the 1954-55 Topps Gordie Howe. Look at this incredible card. This is graded. I probably should have covered this up when I showed this initially because I don't think any of you would have guessed that this is a PSA 4. I don't care about the numerical grade. I care that I have a copy of this card that looks like this. I mean, just stunning. And as I said, to me, this is the most iconic hockey card of the 1950s. In fact, there are a lot of parallels between this card and the 52 Topps mantle on the baseball side of the house. Obviously, this is not anywhere near the price of a 52 mantle, but it's similar in that while Mantle was the king of baseball and the hobby in the golden era, Gordie Howe was the king of hockey and the hobby in the golden era. And just like how Mickey Mantle, his true rookie card is in 51 Bowman, but his first Topps card a year later in 1952 is the more recognizable, desirable, and expensive card. It's very similar for Gordie Howe. His true rookie came earlier in the decade in a Parkhurst set, but it's not really a great looking card. The 51 Bowman Mantle is, but the 51 Parkhurst Howe, it's not a great looking card. And while it's obviously important being his rookie card, this card, which came out a couple years later, his first Topps card, this is the first ever Topps hockey set, is much more iconic and recognizable. And again, to me, the card of the 1950s. So many other things I could go into here. Let's take a look at the back. And as you'll see, this does have that PWCC high eye appeal sticker. And it came with this little above average designation, which I'll keep with the card just in case I ever sell it or a family member of mine has to many years from now. I don't put a lot of stock in these PWCC ratings. I have my own set of eyeballs that I can use when I look at cards. However, I will say that I agree with them. This is an absolutely stunning PSA 4. So this is the greatest hockey card that I have bought in years. And it's a card that I was not even considering purchasing until that whole eBay snafu, receiving the wrong card, getting in touch with that seller, and then finding this example in his store that I just could not get out of my mind. And so I just love the way this whole thing wrapped up. I did the right thing, got a card to its home. The seller who got my card by mistake did the right thing and got it to me eventually. And then because the seller did the right thing and was such a pleasure to deal with, I ended up in a roundabout way getting an absolute dream card that I have fantasized about for decades. Now I've sold about 30 graded cards to get back to level and pay this off, so I'm all set. I fully own the Howe, and I just really thought it was a neat circumstance, and it sort of restored a little bit of my faith in the hobby and sellers and the eBay platform. I know there's been some tough experiences lately. I've had some issues with cards not showing up or getting stolen or lost, and it's frustrating at times, but this was an example of everything going right. A seller doing the right thing and two different buyers doing the right thing, and just a lot of good hobby karma floating around. So like I said, I love that I have this now. This is one that'll be one of my most prized hockey cards for the rest of my time in the hobby. But I love the backstory behind it, and I will always remember how this transpired, how this came about, and the seller who took such good care of me. So that's a wrap for today. I've gone on for over 15 minutes, but if any card deserves it, it's certainly this epic 1954 Gordie Howe. Couldn't wait to share it with all of you. I appreciate it if you stuck with me, especially if you're a baseball fan only or not really into hockey. But this is one where I think the theme of the eBay experience and the iconic nature of this card makes this a video that I hope almost any collector could appreciate. So that's a wrap for today. I'll be back soon. Get out there and enjoy the hobby, everybody. And until next time, take care.